Dave Filoni's Star Wars movie is the most anticipated announcement from Star Wars Celebration, with fans already speculating on what's going to happen. Brace yourselves because the man himself has lifted the lid on what's in store, and it's huge.
Something's coming.
Unfortunately, this could mean the end of the line for some of the characters.
Perhaps it is time to begin again.
So let's get into it. As we edge closer and closer to Dave Filoni's movie, it seems the characters from the Disney Plus shows that we've become accustomed to over the years have been placed into position ready for that arrival. Din Djarin and Din Grogu are now resting up on Navarro, and they're working for the New Republic on a contract basis, which of course is going to tie them into any conflicts the New Republic are involved with. Bo-Katan is on Mandalore rebuilding the planet, and the people are united. Now Mandalore is going to be an absolute powerhouse and an ally to the New Republic when the Empire come knocking. Ahsoka is already on the hunt for Grand Admiral Thrawn, and we will be picking up with her shortly. Boba Fett, on the other hand, is ready and waiting on Tatooine. He's the dumb mule, and he has his own guys working for him. He's got Fennec Shand, he's got Cassandra, and he's also got the Speeder Bike Gang. And then there's Luke Skywalker, where we're not too sure what Luke Skywalker's doing after Grogu left, but let's assume he's still trying to build up his Jedi Academy, and he's searching the galaxy for ancient Jedi and Sith artifacts to put on a mantelpiece. Now, going back to the Ahsoka series, there's one character in particular that we saw in that trailer that is unaccounted for, and that is Ezra Bridger. And this seems to be very much the focus of what the Ahsoka series is going to be about, with these characters coming together, not just to stop the arrival of Thrawn, but to also find their lost friend. Now, of course, Ezra Bridger disappeared with Thrawn in the season final of Rebels and has not been seen since. But upon Ahsoka hearing that Thrawn has returned to the galaxy, that also shed some hope on them finding Ezra. Now, the best way I can describe the way they've set up these Disney Plus shows is like a game of chess. They're all getting ready for the big event, and they're very much shaping the galaxy. They're telling you what the Empire's like at the moment, they're telling you what the New Republic's like at the moment, and they're trying to make it not all one-sided, because when Thrawn comes through, the New Republic are going to struggle. And a big part of this will be the resurgence in Mandalore, which the Imperials are very wary about in The Mandalorian Season 3 when Moff Gideon was having his hologram Zoom call with him. And there's even more crazy leaks going around on how the Empire is going to be come the end of the Ahsoka show, which we'll come on to in a moment. But first, let's take a look at what Dave's had to say, and it all begins with Dave revealing his plans for Grand Admiral Thrawn. Now, responding to a question from the Empire magazine's journalist about eventizing Star Wars, he said there are a lot of factors, especially in playing with a character like Timothy Zahn's Thrawn. I want to make sure that I'm honouring ideas that Tim had, so I want to see what's in his books for the story. In The Bad Batch, there is actually some crossover with the book Heir to the Empire in the military base of Tantis, so there are little things along the way that I've built across different mediums, all in preparation for things that come later. Now, for those of you that didn't know, Timothy Zahn wrote the original Thrawn trilogy in the early 90s, but they're now of course classed as legends. But judging by this interview and others that Dave's done, it seems the direction the New Republic era is going in will be a live action retelling of those original stories. Now, Dave does dig a little bit deeper with this next question on the plans for the New Republic era in general, which in turn ties into The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, the Ahsoka show, and the Skeleton Crew show, which is coming at the end of the year, and any other shows, to be honest, that are released going forwards, and how Thrawn's actually going to fit into all of that. So the question that was asked to him was, do you see Thrawn as the big bad of this New Republic era? Is that how you're positioning him? And Dave responds by saying, definitely. In my eyes, when Timothy Zahn wrote Heir to the Empire, Thrawn became this very iconic villain because he was very different than anything we've seen before. He wasn't another helmet wearing, lightsaber wielding bad guy, you know. There's a lot of pull to make characters that are like Vader because it's so iconic, but the boldness that Tim had was to make somebody that wasn't like that didn't have those abilities, but could fight in a different way. In the word Star Wars, the war part of it. Him being a Grand Admiral, a leader, a military strategist, Moriarty archetype, somebody that will outthink you, out-strategize you, that really resonated. He's a critical player in this time period. We're fortunate enough to have that character and fortunate enough to have Lars Mikkelsen playing him. Now, although we saw Thrawn in the Ahsoka trailer, we never had any confirmation that he was going to go beyond that, although we did expect it. But with Dave saying Thrawn's the big bad of the New Republic era, it all but confirms he's the main threat in the movie as well, and it's going to be very much Thrawn and the Imperial forces he commands. But it's actually his response to another question that really piques my interest and really paints a picture of how big of an event this is within Star Wars history. When asked if the movie will be a culmination of all the stories they've been building up on in Disney Plus, or will it simply be the end of that particular story, let's say phase 1, Dave said the way he looks at it with these Disney Plus shows, they're very much the smaller scale stories. With the movies, and he references A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, and Return of the Jedi, them ones being the big stories of the day, telling an important part of a tale that defines the history of that period, adding that now they've built up all these small stories and they've established the characters and the era they're in, the landscape. The movie is all about creating a bigger picture, a monumental moment in the time period that changes what's happening. Now, going back to something I touched on earlier on, it's very much like all these smaller stories are like chess pieces being moved into play. We've been introduced and reintroduced to characters, they're connecting to each other now, and some of them are establishing relationships like Din Djarin, Boba Fett, and they're very much shaping the galaxy at this time, with Mandalore now being back on the map. It's a big powerhouse. The New Republic struggling to defend themselves against any kind of threat, if I'm honest with you, and the Imperial remnants secretly rebuilding in the shadows. Ahsoka's going to be pretty much the same, I believe, where they're going to position all the pieces into play, but this is actually going to include the main antagonist, and Skeleton Crew I think is going to be similar as well, as that's in the same period of time, and we know that Jude Law is going to be a Jedi. But with each show now, it seems to be building more and more towards the bigger event of the movie, Thrawn and the Enter the Empire retelling, which you see in The Mandalorian. Despite its lack of obvious connection to the larger galaxy, they do chuck in them references about Thrawn one of the last episodes. For Dave to reference these movies as the type of era-defining event that he has in mind, it means the scale of the events that are about to take place should be on par with the movies he mentioned. Heir to the Empire is going to very much follow the Imperials' return under a new leader. They're going to launch attack on the galaxy, and that could potentially shape much of what we see in the sequel trilogy, the emergence of Snoke and the First Order towards the end maybe. But I wouldn't be surprised if they also use this opportunity as a way to explain Luke's decisions in the sequels. If they do, it just means that he's going to suffer a lot this time around, and it adds to his personal trauma, which in turn all leads to his eventual decision to abandon the galaxy and exile himself. Let's not forget either, if they stick true to Heir of the Empire, then we should also be getting Han and Leia as well. So for every negative there is for fans and characters and what's going to happen to them, there's also positives where we could be getting a Luke, Leia and Han moment. But there's also a few other characters that we've been introduced to in these Disney Plus shows, and their futures are up in the air at this point, which could spell bad news for them going forwards, which we'll come on to in just a second. But first, let's have a look at what else we know from Dave Filoni's movie based on what he's said previously. So he did mention about a clamoring of characters, which indicates that you're going to get a lot of these characters from these Disney Plus shows moving into this movie, and that does bring some more questions. If they bring so many characters into this big fight, from Rebels, from The Mandalorian, Boba Fett, I'm thinking Bo-Katan. Of course, we haven't included any of the ones from Skeleton Crew yet, but I'm sure some of them will be in there too, with Jude Law, as I said, being a Jedi. At what point does one ask, why were none of these characters around come the time of The Force Awakens? Because right now it looks like we're going to have numerous Jedi, or at least light side Force users in the field together, with Luke, Ahsoka, Ezra, Jude Law's character and Din Grogu all potentially being in the mix. How are they going to interact with each other? That's going to be really fascinating. Perhaps some of them do disappear and do their own thing. Perhaps some of them have a mysterious fate in this movie which can be picked up on in the Rey movie set 15 years after episode 9. That'd be a cool way to tie in all the stories together. Yes, the galaxy is a big place, and they could have been somewhere else completely helping out in some other way, but for me it seems like Din Djarin is going to be the first one to go, and likely in this Dave Filoni movie. A lot of people thought he was going to be killed off in season 3, but that didn't happen, and now we know we're getting a Mandalorian season 4, which is likely going to be the last season of The Mandalorian before Dave Filoni's movie hits. And part of that will come from the movie being billed as Dave Filoni's movie and not Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni's movie. So to me, it seems like if it does well, then Dave Filoni is going to effectively be given the keys to the mansion to what happens next. And there's also rumours and reports of a bit of discontent behind the scenes with Jon Favreau and leadership within Lucasfilm and interference within the stories that he wants to create. So to me, I wouldn't be surprised if he does decide to bow out after the movie. Of course, he is helping Dave as an executive producer. That is in a more reduced role than I would have expected. But with Din Djarin very much being Jon Favreau's character, you'll notice how he follows a very similar path to another Favreau character in Iron Man, who was a reluctant hero to start with, but as his story progressed, he became more inclined to act for the greater good. He eventually gets the life he wanted, and this can be seen with Din in the end of season 3 with Grogu on Navarro in their hut. But then I can see him following a similar fate to Iron Man, where he does sacrifice himself in this big grand movie event and leaves behind his legacy, and in this case that would be Grogu. And this makes total sense, because although Din Djarin has never been in a Star Wars movie, he is one of the biggest characters now within Star Wars. I don't think they would just go and kill him off in a season final in an episode. It would have to be one of them big on-screen events. With some of the leaks for the Ahsoka show, and that one so far looks to be the most connected to Dave's movie, It looks like they're really building out the scope of the Star Wars universe, and that could then entail more powerful villains entering, but also more powerful allies as well. So at some stage we will have to start saying goodbye to some existing heroes in order for new ones to take their place. Overall, what we're hearing about Dave's movie to me sounds great, and I can't wait to see how it plays out on screens, but I can't help but think we're going to lose some heroes along the way. Do you think this big event Dave speaks of will be the end for some of our characters? If you think it does, let me know who down below. Remember to leave a like on the video if you enjoyed it, subscribe to the channel if you're new. I'll catch you in the next one. May the Force be with you.